Good afternoon. Welcome to MJCD 23 News at War. I'm Danielle Seegership.
And I'm Jess Clark. Today is April 12, 2011, and we prepared a special broadcast for you because it is the 150th anniversary since the beginning of the Civil War. Hi, I'm Jess Clark, and we're here with our Civil War medicine specialist, Cole Platt. So Cole, what do you have to tell us about the Civil War procedures, with their medicine?
Well, in the Civil War, there were major gains in medicine, but there are also a lot of problems, such as doctors would use the same dirty equipment again and again with patients. So,
They wouldn't even wipe it off?
No. So if a doctor would stick a needle or something into one patient, they would just go right to the next and stick the same needle. So, in essence, they're just passing the
infecting over,
from
like
one patient
dominoes.
to the next. Yeah. And so, like for instance, with the anesthetics, chloroform we used a lot to mask the pain. So what would happen is the doctor would douse a napkin with this chloroform, and then since it was an unbearable pain when they did the surgeries, the doctor would just literally just put the napkin over the patient's mouth, and then that would make them fall asleep. So that's how they made the patients more comfortable because they were unconscious.
So, with the northern surgeons compared to the southern surgeons, was there any type of difference, or were they pretty similar?
Oh yes, the Northern Union Army had 10,000 soldiers versus the Confederate Army only had 4,000 soldiers. So that could have been another factor contributed to the North's defeat, because the North had more than twice as many surgeons in the South.
Interesting. So, what really caused these diseases? Was it just them not sterilizing their tools, or was it because of other reasons?
Yeah, the main problem was doctors just didn't have the understanding of using clean equipment. They didn't even understand that you needed to wash your hands after you did surgery. They were so busy and they had so many piles of bodies that they were in such a hurry they forgot to sterilize. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, do you have anything else to say, or is that pretty much covering it?
Well, that pretty much covers it for now, but if you ever need to know more, on our online website.
Type it up. Alright, well thank you for coming out. Hi, I'm Jess Clark, and we're here with our field reporter Joe Chastain, who's done some research on the generals during the Civil War. So Joe, can you tell us anything about the northern generals, please?
Sure, Jess, I'd be happy to. First off, first general that saw action in the war was Irvin McDowell. He was schooled at West Point. Did you know that?
Yes, it's in New York, right?
You are correct. And then, but the surprising thing is, he only saw one battle because, needless to say, he did awful. And he got kicked out, and George McClellan came in and took over his army. And George McClellan also schooled at West Point.
In New
Recurring
York.
theme you'll see here. And he fought very slow. He took his time, and that ultimately led to his demise because Abraham Lincoln needed people that would move quick and get the job done, which he would not do. And he wasn't just kicked off, he was demoted, but he's still in command of his army, but his army didn't do as much because they weren't reliable.
Interesting. So, do you have anything about the southern side of things?
Well, they lost.
Well, yeah, but like they're generals. They're pretty good. I know they were pretty good.
Yeah, well, we have Joe Johnston. I'm a big fan of him because he's my same first name. But he was the superintendent of West Point at one point, so extremely high up. Still a recurring theme, West Point. And he fought against Irvin McDowell at the First Battle of Bull Run, and he was very victorious in that battle.
Anything else you have to say?
Well, the guy that surrendered for the South, Robert E. Lee, probably the most known general in the Civil War, besides maybe Ulysses S. Grant. And he was a West Point man himself, still. And he was first offered to lead the Union by Abraham Lincoln, but he peacefully declined because his home was in the South, so he wanted to fight for his home turf.
Do you have anything to add about Ulysses S. Grant?
Ulysses S. Grant, well, he fought for the North, and he was very, very pivotal person, and he was the opposite of George McClellan. He fought a lot, fought very hard, almost never surrendered, and that he sacrificed a lot of men, but he definitely got the job done when he fought, and he was there at Appomattox Courthouse with Robert E. Lee when the shaking of the hands and the surrendering went down.
Well, thank you for your time. I hope you can come in again. Welcome back, Cole. It's good to see you again. So, we had a couple more questions about, your procedures. We were wondering if you could do any demonstrations for our audience.
Sure, so today I brought in a dummy of the leg portion. So right here you can see is the femur, and this is the tibia attached with the fibula. So what they would do is, if somebody was shot in the leg, for instance, the bottom of your leg right here, they would first put the chloroform over the patient's mouth, which made them fall asleep, so then they were unconscious pretty much. And then if the bullet was down here in your leg, they would cut above the wound, so that way the wound couldn't spread any farther than it had. So literally, they would take an axe or a saw of some type, and they would just, after the patient was unconscious, they would just go like this.
Jess is a little busy at the moment, so I'll be filling in for her.
And, for instance, if a patient had a brain problem, I brought in a skull. So what the doctor would do is, again, after the patient was unconscious, for instance, if they had something to do with the brain, the doctor would take his saw or his axe and...
Well, thank you for your time, Cole. Hope to have you back soon.
You too.
Welcome back. We're here with Jess Clark to discuss the roles of the women during the Civil War. In the North, the women had to work in the factories in order to gain money for their families while their men were away. But however, the war was mostly in the South. So Jess, can you tell us how that affected the women down in the South?
So I've done a lot of research, and I have a lot of primary sources. So my first one is actually from a letter from a wife of a Confederate general, and she's mentioning how when the Yankees come down into the South, they'll actually come through and completely search their homes. They'll take a lot of their stuff too, because, for supplies in the army, everything's fair in love and war, I guess. But that was this one. This is from Elizabeth Rosser. So if you would like to get a nice close-up of this, it'd be good. Okay, secondly, we have a letter from a little girl who was at school, and there was a fight going on only a couple miles away, and you'd think, children would be afraid, but by this time in the war, they were kind of used to it. So she was writing, to her friends that it really didn't affect her that much. So you can kind of tell how it affected the lives of younger children that were there during the war. This is a good close-up. I also have a letter from a woman who had sent her slave out on an errand. But you see, the slaves actually gained a lot of power during this time because the big plantation owners weren't home. So this slave came back, and she brought with her a whole Union army. So they ransacked the whole plantation, and needless to say, she probably wasn't a slave there anymore.
Yes.
Lastly, I have a letter from a Union soldier who was down in the South, and he visited a lot of ladies, and he said that the Southern women were very sweet, just like the ones up north were. And he even says, the young ladies here are very sociable, but are strong such as there is hardly a house but contains some of the fair sex. I feel more at home here than any place than I have been. I tell you, it's hard for me to think that I have to fight against their brothers, but I can't help feeling for them, although they differ with me. So it's kind of interesting to see it from that point of view, how they're all really the same, even though they're having this terrible war with each other just because of a couple of issues. So, and that's all we have for now.
Hello, this is Joe Chastain here, a former field reporter, now upgraded to special reporter. And I'm here with Mark, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the surrender of the South to the North at the end of the Civil War. Mark?
April 9th, 1865, the South surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse to the North. The terms of agreement for the surrender was simply the South gave up their arms. Was that Lincoln sent orders to Grant about letting them keep their guns and horses, but Grant was too proud to let them keep their guns because he's a proud man.
And
go ahead.
And we just talked about the terms and agreements, but it's my understanding that this wasn't like a full-out treaty. This was just kind of like the South surrendering because the North just beat them down. Is that true?
Yeah, that's the way it turned out in the end. There was, to my belief, no formal treaty that officially ended the war, but on that day the war ended.
Very interesting. Well, thank you for your time here today. Hope to be seeing you around pretty soon, sometime. That is all for this episode of 150-year anniversary. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the battle we've all been waiting for. On the right, in the right corner, we have the North, 20 states strong, looking to reunite the Union. Let's go. And now, on the South, some rebels we got, 11 states strong, the South, looking to get their freedom because they want slaves. It all comes down to this, right here, right now. Let's get it on.
And we're back with some information on the disadvantages and advantages of the North and South during the Civil War. First, the North had an advantage of having much more supplies due to the fact that they had much more factories.
Oh, and the North gets a blow on the South right off the bat.
But on the other side, the South was defending their homeland, so they had much more to fight for. It was literally their fight for their way of life.
Oh, the double hit. Oh, he almost goes to the ground. South coming back. He ain't having any of that.
The North also had an advantage of having more transportation due to the fact that they had more people to build more railroads.
Yeah, because the South really didn't have any railroads in their territory at all. So they were all in the North, so the North had the ability to get the supplies.
North just overwhelming the South right now. Don't know how it's going to end, but it's not looking good.
Not only did the North have the ability for more supplies and the railroads, but they also had the more money so that they could make these objects.
Just can't get enough. He's just coming at him. Oh, he's on the ground. He's on the ground.
But on the flip side,
the
the South actually had more skilled soldiers because of the intelligence of their generals. Most of the generals were actually educated at West Point in the North, but they were from the South, so they returned to their home country to kind of fight for them.
However, the North actually had more soldiers because they allowed the freed blacks to be part of their army, and they actually had 4 times more free citizens because the South actually had their slaves as slaves, and they had bigger farms, so they were more spread out, so they had less people.
Ooh, just wearing down. The North, not even putting up with it.
The North also had more people because 1% of their population was based off of African Americans, and by the end of the war, 10% of their army was based off of African Americans, which allowed their army to ultimately defeat the South.
Oh, and he gets another blow. Another blow. Can the South get up? He's struggling. Oh. 8, 9, 10. He's down. North wins. North wins. It's all over.
And that's a wrap for today.
Press. You just press it.
We could be sitting here talking about like the disadvantages and the advantages, and then they could be like fighting behind us.
Like right now?
Like right now.
No, let's just do the intro first. Okay? Good afternoon. Welcome to MJCD 23 News at 6. At 4. Gosh dang it, it's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. Welcome to Gosh dang it. and welcome to MJCD 23 News at 4. I'm Danielle Segerstrom.
And I'm Jess Clark.
Stop. Good afternoon. Welcome to MJCD 23 News at 4. I'm Danielle Segerstrom.
And I'm Jess Clark. Today is April 12th, 2011, and it is the 150th anniversary since the beginning of the Civil War. So we have prepared for you a special broadcast. April 7th.
Something funny, Cole?
Oh wait, April 9th, yeah.
Zeke posted.
You're on Facebook right now? Are you kidding me? Go.
Hi, this is Joe Chastain here with special guest Mark. He's got some information to tell us about the surrender of the South to the North in the Civil War. Mark, what do you have to say about this?
April 7th, or 19th, 9. Wow.
Go.
Hi, I'm Jess Clark, and we're here with our... wait, what is it again? Our Civil War medicine specialist. Okay, I can do it. Okay. So, what kind of things would the doctors use to mask the pain?
Well, chloroform was the major anesthetic that they used. What they would do is they would just put it in a, kind of like a, they would put it in a, anything from a.
Go.
Hi, I'm Jess Clark, and we're here with our Civil War medicine specialist, Cole Plura. So, Cole, what do you have to tell us about the medicine procedures during the Civil War?
Well, there were major gains with medicine in the Civil War, but also there were a lot of problems, such as doctors would use the same non-sterile equipment on patient.
I can't do it.
So what they would do, literally, is they would have a axe of some sort or some kind of saw, and after they put the chloroform over the mouth of the patient and the patient was unconscious, if the patient had a bullet in the leg, for instance.
So we're gonna videotape you guys and us at the same time. You wanna videotape?
And it starts when the numbers start at the top. So you can just say go when the numbers start going, and we'll wait a few seconds.
How I stop?
Yeah, you just press.
Where are you petting Bunny?
When are we going? Okay.
She can cut it.
Okay, I'll cut this part out. Ready? Go.
Posture, Isabel.
I know, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say.
Oh my gosh.
He was schooled at the West Point in New York. I think we all know that. Very high education there. But he only fought in one battle, and that was the first battle of Bull Run. And needless to say, he did awful. So the next general that took over.
Legs. Welcome back. We're here with Jess Clark to discuss the roles of the women during the Civil War. However, we all know that in the North, the women had to work in the factories in order to bring home the money that the men were... Gosh, how do I word this? Welcome back. We're here with... Welcome back! We're here with Jess Clark to discuss the roles of the women during the Civil War. We all know that in the North, the women had to play the roles of the men and work in the factories in order to gain money for their families. But with the war being mostly in the South, Jess, how did that affect the women down in the South?